Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Zoom na Cartografia. Is the broadcast okay? Can you all hear me well?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So, dear colleagues, it's a pleasure for us today to welcome Professor Marcos Lunguinho and Professor Patrícia Rodrigues, who both are our guests today. Professor Marcos Lunguinho has a PhD in linguistics from the University of São Paulo, and he was a visiting student at the Department of Linguistics and Philosophy at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, during his PhD. He's currently a professor at the Department of Linguistics, Portuguese and Classical Languages at the University of Brasilia, leader of the group of studies and research in theoretical grammar. He's also responsible for Brazilian Portuguese Synthetic Observatory, together with Gabriel de Ávila Otero, Leonel de Alencar, and Eduardo Kennedy. Among his interests of research is the syntax pragmatic articulation, working on the following topics: vocatives and interjections, pragmatics of verbs, conversational markers, and their syntax. Professor Patrícia Rodrigues has a PhD in linguistics from the Université du Québec à Montréal, and she's currently an associate professor at the Federal University of Paraná. Patrícia coordinates the research project Adverbial Sentences in Brazilian Portuguese, with emphasis on syntax and its interfaces with semantics and pragmatics. Both professors will have from 50 minutes to up to an hour to give their conference, which is entitled Evaluative Pragmatic Markers in Brazilian Portuguese, a Cartography Perspective. After that, we'll have some time for discussion. So please, if you have any questions, just send us in the YouTube's chat with your name, country, and institution. Alternatively, you can also send your question by email to tescari@unicamp.br. And now, Professor Marcos and Professor Patrícia, welcome to Zoom na Cartografia. Thank you for being here with us today, and the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. I will start the presentation and then I will pass the floor to my colleague Marcos Lunguinho. The title of our presentation is Evaluative Pragmatic Markers in Brazilian Portuguese, a Cartographic Perspective. So the main objective of this talk is to examine the properties of Brazilian Portuguese constructions conveying the speaker's unexpected or negative attitude, as in 1 and 2. In 1 we have capaz que a Maria vai se aposentar, até parece que a Maria vai se aposentar, da onde que a Maria vai se aposentar. And in 2 we have vê lá, imagina se a Maria vai se aposentar. A translation for these sentences would be, I can't believe Maria is retiring, or no, Maria won't retire. By uttering these sentences, the speaker means that they are very surprised to hear that Maria is retiring, or that they do not believe, they doubt or deny it is the case that Maria is retiring. It is the highlighted expressions that are responsible for these readings. To do that, they must receive a prominent stress. And the difference between 1 and 2 is that in 1 we have the complementizer que, and in 2 we have the complementizer se, if. These expressions, without the prominent stress, they have other readings that we will discuss later. We are assuming that these expressions are pragmatic markers, so we are dealing here with the articulation between syntax and conversational pragmatics. To understand how these pragmatic markers are organized, we sought theoretical support within the Cartographic project. In generative grammar, the first formal treatment of the interface between syntax and conversational pragmatics was proposed by Ross in 1970. According to Ross's proposal, sentences are associated with an elocutionary act in a deep structure, which presents a performative verb and the information about the speech act participants. There are many studies in the cartographic project that resume Ross' proposal. They argue that discursive pragmatic categories are encoded in syntax in a field destined to conversational pragmatics, and this field would be located above the CP level. These proposals share the hypothesis that the interpretation of constituents with discursive pragmatic appeal is related both to their morphosyntactic properties and to the syntactic configuration associated with them. This hypothesis can be thought of as a tentative project called syntacticization of discourse, in the words by Hagman and Hugh 2013. Our hypothesis is that the expressions we have seen in one and in two underwent a pragmaticalization process, becoming pragmatic markers. One important property of what has been called pragmatic markers is that they do not produce an effect at the strictly propositional level, but rather they signal the speaker's communicative intentions. And so these expressions for us are part of the left periphery merged at speech act projection. Here we have a sketch of our proposal. We will discuss and detail it later. And the consequence of this proposal is that sentences in which these markers appear are monoclausal structures. Here we have the organization of our presentation. We just went through the introduction part 1. Next, in part 2, we will discuss the empirical domain. In part 3, we show our analysis, and in part 4, we present our final remarks. Discussing the empirical domain, we will present first the readings we just have seen, the expressive readings. So when we take into account the two participants in a conversation, we can divide pragmatic markers into two groups: markers related to the speaker and markers directed to the hearer. In this talk, we are concerned with markers related to the speaker that express a point of view of doubt or denial of the speaker, and we're calling these markers expressive markers. So expressive markers can convey two types of attitudes: speaker surprise, equivalent to "I do not believe that," or "Is it true, really?" Meaning that the speaker does not immediately accept the information presented by the interlocutor, and he acts by questioning its content. And expressive markers can also convey the speaker's contrary point of view about what has been said. The speaker's attitude can be stated with more or less conviction and can be also tainted with irony. And there are cases in which it can be equivalent to no. Here we have some examples to show the attitude of surprise of these markers. In 3, an example with capaz. A says, "Did you know that my daughter said these colors you choose to make the rugs will be very nice together?" And B answers, "Capaz que ela disse isso, que legal." Meaning, is it true? Did she say that? How nice. In 4, até parece. Até parece que a Maria chegou atrasada. Sério? Meaning, I can't believe that Maria was late. Are you sure? And in 5, with da onde? Da onde que o João está aqui? Não acredito. Meaning, I can't believe John is here. Here we have a tweet to illustrate this use of da onde, this attitude of surprise. She says, "Da onde que eu passei nessa prova? Feliz." Meaning, I don't believe I passed this test. I'm happy. So it's really a surprise attitude. In 6 and 7, we have examples for Velá and Imagina. In 6, Velá, se o Pedro ia pedir dinheiro emprestado, ele pediu? I can't believe Peter would borrow money. Did he really ask for money? And in 7, we have, imagina se ele ia fazer uma tatuagem. Ele achava isso horrível. I can't believe he got a tattoo. He thought that was horrible. Now, examples that show the negative attitude of these markers. In 8, A says, we should go fishing. What do you think of my idea? And B answers, ah, tá, capaz que eu vou pescar contigo. Meaning, there is no way I'm going fish with you. In 9, an example with até parece. Até parece que o Lula vai deixar o PT do Rio romper com Freixo. Meaning, there's no way Lula will let Rio's PT break up with Freixo. And in 10, an example with da onde. Da onde que aquele lance foi pênalti? Meaning, no way that shot was a penalty. And now, examples with Velá and Imagina. We have to consider the context. A says, it's almost time for the meeting. Is everyone there? B answers, Maria from the account hasn't arrived yet. I think she's going to be late. And A replies, Maria, no, she's always super punctual. Vê lá se ela vai chegar atrasada. Imagina se ela vai chegar atrasada. Meaning, there is no way she will be late. We have here some tweets to illustrate these uses, but we do not comment on them. They are there just as an illustration. So now I'll show you the other readings of these expressions when they do not receive the prominent stress on the sentence. Starting with capaz, it can have an epistemic reading, revealing the speaker's degree of certainty about the content of the proposition, as in 13. Capaz que corte a energia da emissora para evitar a pisa televisionada. They are likely to cut the broadcaster's power to avoid showing the bidding in the debate. Here, we don't have capaz que cortem a energia, but we have capaz que cortem a energia da emissora. So without the prominent stress on the expression capaz. We have here then what we call an epistemic capaz. Epistemic capaz selects a that clause. For the concerning the properties of epistemic capaz, the verb of the finite clause headed by que, that, can be inflected either in indicative or in subjunctive mood. As in 14, capaz que vocês querem comer bolo, indicative, and capaz que vocês queiram comer bolo, subjunctive, meaning it's possible that you want to eat some cake. We have here biclausal structures. Epistemic capaz can be embedded, as in 15. Minha ideia é que capaz que o algoritmo não mudou. My idea is that the algorithm did not change. And o João acha que capaz que a Ana viaje. João thinks that it's possible that Ana travels. Capaz is also associated with an habilitative reading expressing capacities or abilities of the subject, as we can see in 16. Ele é capaz de nadar 5 horas. He can swim 5 hours. Habilitative capaz inflects for number. Ele é capaz, eles são capazes de te ajudar. They can help you. And it selects for a PP complement. O gato não é capaz de andar, but not a that complement. We cannot have o gato não é capaz que ande, meaning here the cat cannot walk. And it can be embedded. O adolescente achava que era capaz de comer 5 quilos de comida. The teenager thought that they could eat 5 kilos of food. So if we compare expressive capaz with epistemic capaz and habilitative capaz, we can see that it presents different properties. The verb of the finite clause headed by que, that, can be inflected only in the indicative mood, as in 20. Capaz que a Ana viajou, but we cannot have capaz que a Ana viaje with the verb in the subjunctive. Sentences with expressive capaz cannot be embedded, so we cannot have o João acha que capaz que a Ana viajou. And expressive capaz has a morphological fixed form. It no longer functions as the adjective capaz in habilitative modal constructions. It is also the case for epistemic capaz. So we cannot have capazes que eles fizeram isso or capazes que eles fizeram isso. Nor we cannot have the expressive capaz nor the epistemic capaz here. In conclusion, expressive capaz is different from epistemic capaz and from habilitative capaz. Expressive capaz is an expression directly linked to the speaker's attitude, conveying surprise, doubt, opposing point of view with respect to an interlocutor statement. It is not related with the epistemic modality. So our proposal is that this form is the result of a process of pragmaticalization undergone by epistemic capaz. Now, the expression até parece que is used in a raising predicate. And in this use, it expresses a kind of marker of epistemic modality or evidentiality on the part of the speaker, as we can see in 23. O céu está escuro, até parece que vai chover. The sky is dark, it looks like it's going to rain. In this meaning, the word até is optional. We can have o dia está tão bonito que parece que é feriado. The day is so beautiful that it feels like a holiday. And até parece que can be embedded, as in 25. Dizem que até parece que isso aconteceu de verdade. People say that it seems that this really happened. The raising verb parecer has a full paradigm, as in 26. Eu até pareço que estou doente. It even feels like I'm sick. Eles até pareciam que estavam doentes. It even feels like they were sick. And a gente vai até parecer que está doente. We will even look like we are sick. So expressive até parece que is different from the raising predicate até parece que. Expressive até parece que is an expression directly linked to the speaker's attitude, conveying surprise, doubt, denial, opposing point of view with respect to an interlocutor's statement. Then our proposal is that the form até parece que is the result of a process of pragmaticalization undergone by the raising verb parecer and the operator até. Now, the expression da onde que. This expression is used in interrogative sentences, as in 27. Da onde que você veio? Where did you come from? Or da onde que eu te conheço? Where did Where did I know you from? Since this expression appears in interrogative sentences, que is optional, as in fronted WH questions in Brazilian Portuguese, as in 28. Da onde que você veio? Or da onde você veio? Where did you come from? Da onde eu te conheço? Where do I know you from? This form, the onde, can be an argument of some element of the sentence, or it can be an adjunct. As an argument, we have an example in 29a. Da onde que você veio? Where did you come from? And as in an adjunct, we have an example in 29b. Da onde que eu te conheço? Where do I know you from? So sentences with da onde and de onde are ungrammatical if this expression is neither an argument nor an adjunct. So we cannot have da onde que você é nosso chefe? Or da onde que o João acordou? And interrogative sentences with da onde and de onde can be embedded, as in 31. Gostaria de saber da onde que você é. I would like to know where are you from. Or o João falou da onde que ele copiou aquela citação. Did John say from where he copied that quote? In conclusion, expressive da onde is different from interrogative da onde. Expressive da onde que, de onde que, is an expression directly linked to the speaker's attitude, conveying surprise, criticism, denial, or the opposing point of view with respect to an interlocutor's statement. Our proposal is then that the form da onde que, de onde que, is the result of a process of pragmaticalization undergone by the interrogative da onde, de onde. Now the expression vê lá, se, it can appear in constructions associated with a verification meaning. Here we have a context for this use. A says, it's almost time for the meeting. Is everyone there? And B answers, Maria from the account hasn't arrived yet. A replies, so do me a favor, call her and check if she's going to be late. Vê lá se ela vai chegar atrasada. So a sense of verification. We have here a by-clause structure. The verb ver, in this sense, has a complete morphological paradigm, as you can see in 33. Eu vejo, você sempre via, ele viu se tinha gente na recepção. I check, you always checked, he checked if there were people at the reception. These constructions can convey other speech acts, such as a promise or a question. An example of a promise in 34a, eu vejo lá se ela chegou, não se preocupe. I'll check if she arrived, don't worry. And an example of a question in 34b, você viu se estava tudo certo com as passagens? Did you check if everything was okay with the tickets? So expressive sense of vê lá is different from the verification sense of vê lá. Expressive vê lá is an expression directly linked to speaker's attitude, conveying surprise, doubt, opposing point of view with respect to an interlocutor's statement. The form ver is not a form of the full verb ver, to see. So our proposal is that this form is the result of a process of pragmaticalization undergone by the imperative form of the full verb ver when it selects a complement headed by se, if. Now, finally, the expression imagina that has a lexical use. It is a full verb with the sense of to estimate, to guess, to conjecture, to speculate, as in the example 35. Imagina se toda a energia que o povo coloca em cuidar da vida dos outros fosse direcionada para cuidar da sua própria. Imagine if all the energy that people put into taking care of others' lives were directed to taking care of their own. We have here a biclausal structure. As a full verb, imaginar selects two arguments, as we can see in 36. We can have imagining se chove, but we cannot have B, C, D, imagining, and imagina e imagina se chove with expletive little pro as a subject. And it also has a complete morphological paradigm. Eu estou imaginando se ela vai se lembrar de mim. I'm wondering if she will remember me. Or você já imaginou se o fim do mundo fosse amanhã? Have you ever imagined if the end of the world were tomorrow? So imagina in its expressive use is different from imagina in its lexical use. Expressive imagina, se, is an expression directly linked to the speaker's attitude, conveying surprise, doubt, opposing point of view with respect to an interlocutor's statement. The form imagina is not a form of the full verb imaginar. So our proposal is that this form is the result of a process of pragmaticalization undergone by the imperative form of the full verb imaginar when it selects a complement headed by se, if. Now I pass the floor to Marcus.
Okay, now I'm gonna show our analysis to all of these expressive markers, okay. Our analysis is a combination of two proposals. The first of all is the proposal by Hill, 2014, which is a syntactic projection of pragmatic roles, is a kind of adaptation of Spies and Tenney 2003 original proposal of syntactic projection of pragmatic roles in the syntax. And then Hill's proposal has two speech act projections, a speech act related to the speaker on the top of the structure, and then the speech act related to the addressee or the hearer, and then the fourth P, the content, the utterance. And then the second part is the proposal by Miyagawa, which combines a Spies, Tenney, and Hill with Krivka proposal. And then Hill will use the proposal by Spies and Tenney regarding the two projection of speech acts, and Krivka's idea that we have the TP, and on top of TP, we have a lot of projections. On top of the structure, we have the act P, is a layer related to the speaker's performance of the speech act. Then we have a commit P, a layer related to the notion that speech acts are the expression of public commitments. Then we have judge P, a layer related to the judgment by the speaker of his or her attitude toward the proposition, and then the TP, the proposition. This is Krivka's proposal. And then Miyagawa will combine these two proposals in the proposal we see in 14. We have a C system, with is the propositional content component of the sentence. We have TP, and in this C system, we have a lot of structure, a lot of projections. One of them is judge P, which is integrated into CP. And above this C system, we have the expressive component responsible for the illocutionary force of the utterance. In this component, we have commit P, which expresses the relation of the speaker and the addressee with the proposition in the propositional component, and the speech act projection, which expresses the speaker and the addressee responsible in the communicative act. Then, to our analysis to mapping the expressive markers in the syntax, we will combine the speech act heads from Spizentani and Hill. We will use the commit phrase and judge phrase from Kripka and Miyagawa, and we will see the selection of judge. Judge P will select some information in the form of a CP from Miyagawa. And then our proposal is in 41. We have speech act heads on the top of the structure. We have a commit phrase, we have a judge phrase, and then we have a CP. Now, we will show how we will combine these things. We have these five expressive markers: capaz que, até parece que, da onde que, vê lá se, imagina se. We said from the first part that these markers convey evaluative meaning, idea of surprise, denial, which are some kind of meanings associated with the speaker. And we see that these markers can be divided into two groups. One group that select que, and another group with select se. Now, looking at the selection properties, capaz que, até parece que, da onde que, the first group, vê lá se, imagina se, the second group, this leads us to ask if if the item that has pragmaticalized was the combination capaz que, até parece que, da onde que, or vê lá se, imagina se. Is this a unit? No, our answer is that no, they are not units. They are pragmaticalized separately, as we can see in the examples below. Looking at the context, A and B are talking about John's poor performance at work. A says, I think John will be fired this week. B says, why? A says, it's just a guess. And then B says, I don't believe so. And then this person continues, capaz, até parece, da onde, vê lá, imagina. But it's not possible to say in this context, capaz que, até parece que, da onde que, vê lá se, imagina-se. Okay, this impossibility of using these elements of a unity is used for us as one piece of evidence to show that they are not pragmaticalized as a unity. Okay, and then these elements are not a unity, and then what we have is capaz, até parece, da onde, vê lá, and imagina. And then we say that there are two elements in this pragmatic marker. And then the second question is, how can we analyze synthetically these elements? Then we are using our proposal in 2007 to vê lá and 2019 to capaz to say that these elements are speech act heads. Okay. In these studies, we said that they are externally merged into the speech act head related to the speaker. But what we are doing in this presentation is refining this proposal and extending it to the other pragmatic markers. Até parece, da onde e imagina. And how are you do this? To refine our proposal, we have to say that the first thing we have to account is for the selectional requirements of these expressive markers. Using our proposal, we have that vê lá and capaz are speech act heads, and then there is a force P on top on the bottom of the structure. Okay, next. And then we have to account for the selection. Vê lá select for some kind of force, a C force, and capaz is selecting a key force. But there are elements between them. And then we cannot have this kind of selection since they are not locally related to the force. Okay, and then our proposal must be completed. And then to refine our proposal, we have to say that capaz, até parece, da onde, vê lá, and imagine must be in a certain position to locally see command K and C, and these elements are related to the speaker. And then we have to combine these two things. First, the selectional question, and second, the relation to participant of the communicative act. And then Miyagawa, 2022, explains that there are some items which must occur in a position given selectional requirements and must occur in another position given expressive properties. This is exactly the case of Brazilian Portuguese expressive markers studied here, because they must be in a position to account for selection, and they must be in another position to account for their relation with the speaker. And then, adapting our proposal, we are saying that capaz, até parece, da onde, vê lá, and imagina, are elements related to a functional projection called judgment. And then this functional projection is locally secomanding CP, and then we can account for the selection. Capaz, até parece, da onde, select a CP with some properties which are lexicalized as K, and vê lá, and imagina, select other CP with another properties which are lexicalized as K. This is based in Miyagawa's articulated C system, when we see some head selecting CP, judge select a CP, and then we are assuming that capaz, até parece, da onde, vê lá, and imagina are externally merged as judge. These are judge because these expressions express judgments of the speaker regarding the content of the CP. They are a judgment about this content. Okay, next. And then continue the derivation of the structure. These elements are externally merged in the judge, but they must reach the speech act related to the subject to explain the other face of these elements. They are elements related to the speaker of the conversation. And then he goes to reach the speech act speaker. Okay, this is the final position of them in the structure. Okay, and then quoting Miyagawa, he says that if an item occurs in the C system due to some selectional factor, but it also has some property that connects it to the expressive component, it must move out of the extended C system. It then becomes part of the expressive component, not inherently, but derivatively. Is the case of our pragmatic markers. They are not externally merged as speech act heads, as we proposed in 2017, 2019, but they get that position from the result of movement. And then we have some consequences of our analysis. First of all, is that all the structures with these pragmatic markers are monoclausal. And then we have capaz, que hoje tem prova, is not in 48A, there is no 2K. Is capaz que hoje tem prova. Até parece que hoje tem prova, da onde que hoje tem prova. And then we have EM is expressive marker, that today is a test day. And then we have the other expressive markers. Vê lá se hoje tem prova. Imagina se hoje tem prova. Expressive markers, and then if today is a test day. It's a gloss, okay? The second consequence is that impossibility of embedding. This is a key feature of this kind of structures, because since they are related to the speech acts, the speech act projection is a projection related only to the main clause. If they are elements of main clause, these elements cannot be embedded. And then this is what we have. Ele acha que capaz que eu vou mentir para você. Ele acha que até parece que eu vou mentir para você. Ele acha que da onde eu vou mentir para você. He thinks that expressive marker that I will lie to you. It's impossible in Portuguese. And then we have, ele acha que, vê lá se eu vou mentir para você. Ele acha que, imagina se eu vou mentir para você. He thinks that expressive marker, if I will lie to you. all the possibility of embedding are not possible in Portuguese. And then the third consequence is the preferred ordered expressive marker and vocative. When we have expressive marker and vocative, in general, people tend to accept the vocative in second position. Menino capaz que eu vou deixar você sozinho, capaz menino que eu vou deixar você sozinho. Menino, até parece que eu vou deixar você sozinho, até parece menino que eu vou deixar você sozinho. Menino, da onde que eu vou deixar você sozinho, da onde menino que eu vou deixar você sozinho. Okay? And with the other kinds of expressive markers, menino, vê lá se eu vou deixar você sozinho, vê lá menino se eu vou deixar você sozinho. Menino, imagina se eu vou deixar você sozinho, imagina menino se eu vou deixar você sozinho. Then there is a strong preference to the second position of the vocatives. Some people accept the first position, but they say that when we have the vocative in first position, it's kind of a calling the attention of the person. It's not introducing it in the conversation. It's a thing that we have to study more. Okay. And then we have some final remarks of our presentation. What we have done. In this presentation, we proposed an analysis of expressive markers of Brazilian Portuguese, capaz que, até parece que, da onde que, vê lá se, imagina se. These markers undergone a process of linguistic change, which made evidential modal elements, WH constituents, and lexical verbs pragmaticalize, becoming elements related to the interface between syntax and conversational pragmatics. And as a result, these expressive items convey readings associated with a judgment from the part of the speaker, denial, doubt, surprise, regarding the meaning of the CP which follows them. Okay. The analysis put forth is based on Rodrigues and Lunguinho's 2017 and 2019 idea, according to which Valença and capaz are speech act heads. This idea is complemented by Miyagawa's proposal that some items has relations both with the C system and the expressive system, and we assume that this is the correct description of the behavior of the 5 expressive markers studied here. Okay. Our proposal is that these elements are judge elements introduced into the C system and then gets to the expressive content by movement. Okay. What we have to do, we have to seek more evidence to our proposal, and we have to understand a very interesting interaction that we see with this between these expressive elements and with interjections, because interjections are elements related to the speaker. And we have just one example here with the interjection, which expresses disapproval. It's very common to have this interjection in the first position. For example, capaz que alguém vai aqui te ajudar. And not capaz, que alguém vem aqui te ajudar. Até parece que vem aqui alguém te ajudar. Da onde que vem alguém te ajudar? Vê lá se vem alguém aqui te ajudar. Imagina se vem alguém aqui te ajudar. The first position is very common for these elements, but these are interesting data because since interjections are related to the speaker, some people tend to analyze them as heads of the speech act head related to the speaker. But since we have correct in saying that capaz, até parece, da onde, vê lá, imagina, move out from the judge P to the head of the speech act head, we have to say something about the interjections or about these elements. Or are these interjections really heads, or are they specs of these elements? Okay, it's a thing that we have to study. Maybe we have a typology of interjections. Some of them are heads and some of them are specs, but it's thanks to another presentations because it's a thing that we are studying now in our proposal. Okay. The data analyzed in this presentation constitute pieces of empirical evidence to the postulation of speech act heads in the syntactic spine and contribute to the discussion of the syntactization of the discourse project as proposed by Hagman and Hill in 2013. And then that's it. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you very much, Achilles and Sandra, for the invitation for this presentation. We are very, very honored to participate in the conference of Zoom na Cartografia. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for so much, Professor Marcos and Professor Patrícia, for such an enlightening talk. So now I'm going to address some of the questions that we have received from our audience. If you have questions, please, you can still send us through the chat, okay? The first question, a student from La Casa Group sent us a question that I'm going to read. In a paper by the two of you published by Cadernos de Estudos Linguísticos related to the topic of the presentation, you gave the Brazilian sentence, capaz que Maria casou, literally capaz that Maria got married. According to our description, in this sentence, capaz conveys surprise, incredulity, and empathetic negation. Therefore, the sentence can be paraphrased either as I can't believe Maria got married. She said she didn't want to get married. Or as, are you kidding that Maria got married? I would never have imagined that Maria getting married. Accordingly, these two paraphrases make it clear the surprise reading conveyed by capaz. The same sentence, capaz que Maria casou, can also convey that you call empathetic negation by the speaker or incredulity. And these paraphrases provide for this reading are, no way she got married. This is impossible, and Maria didn't get married at all. That's impossible. I was wondering whether the sentence capaz que a Maria casou conveys at the same time both the surprise-like reading and the incredulity empathetic negation one. To put it differently, is the sentence capaz que a Maria casou ambiguous? Therefore, having either a surprise-like reading in one hand and an empathetic negation, Therefore, having either a surprise-like reading in one hand and an empathetic negation incredulity on the other hand? Or should we understand that these two meanings are faces of one same coin, namely that the two readings, the surprise reading and the empathetic negation incredulity one, come together when capaz is a discourse marker?
In this, we are treating this expression in this context as ambiguous, and the context would separate the two senses, okay? But there is, we had a comment on this, I don't know if on this article or another one, that maybe there is a difference in the prosody of the two meanings, but we don't know. We don't know about that because we didn't study the prosody of these constructions. The person that gave us this comment, he was a speaker of capaz, and he said that maybe there is he felt there was a difference in the prosody of capaz surprise and capaz emphatic negation. So just the data, like we look at it, we say that it's the context that take out the ambiguity. Marcos.
Another way to analyze this difference is to say that we have just one capaz, and then when it enters the derivation, it has two different combination of features, and one of them gives rise in the LF component the idea of negation, and then in PF component a kind of intonation. And then when it has another kind of features, and it has at the LF the interpretation of surprise, and at PF another kind of melodic curve, something like that. To maintain the idea that we have one element with differences in terms of features. Another possibility is to say that we have only two capas in the structure. One of them is related to surprise, and another of them is related to negation. And then we have to analyze them to say that there is a prediction with this analysis that we can have these two possibilities. We have these two elements in the sentence. Say some kind of a negation and a surprise in this negation. It's a thing that we have to examine. Okay.
Okay, thank you. The second question is from a student from the NAG group that just sent us the following question through WhatsApp. What is the syntactic status of epistemic capaz in Brazilian Portuguese? Should we take it to the head and the already grammaticalized capaz in Spanish, discussed by you in Cadernos de Estudos Linguísticos paper, to be a phrase as capaz in Spanish according to the description in that paper? Behaves as an adverbial-like element, while apparently it doesn't in Brazilian Portuguese.
In Brazilian Portuguese, it's clear that capaz with epistemic element is a kind of modal. It's a modal head. Okay? In the Spanish, there is a difference into the descriptions. Some of them call them a kind of adverbial element, but there are some works that analyze them as a kind of modal heads also. Patrícia, I think it's like this, like
What? What did you say?
The capaz in Portuguese and Spanish. In Portuguese, it's epistemic capaz. In Portuguese, it's like a modal element, right?
Yeah. We think it's not at the same stage at Spanish capaz. In Spanish capaz is maybe more grammaticalized than epistemic capaz in Portuguese, because this capaz in Spanish cannot accept the subjunctive, and we still have the subjunctive in these constructions. So we think that's it's in the path of complete grammaticalization, but it's not yet there.
Okay, thank you, professors. The third question from Gitana Bezerra from the NAG group sent us the following question on the chat. Is this use of capaz somehow different from what we see in é capaz de? And then she completes her question stating the following. Considering my question above, I had in mind the example of 13.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what I said for the previous question, is that we think it's the same meaning, and it's in the path of the grammaticalization. So we can have still é capaz que cortem a energia da emissora, or capaz que cortem a energia da emissora. And as we see here, we have the subjunctive. So it's clear by clause structure, and we think we have just ellipse of the verb to be.
See. And then we have another possibility that it's é capaz de cortarem a nossa energia. é capaz de cortarem a nossa energia with, in fact, inflected infinitive. And then we have, instead of a finite clause, we have a non-finite clause headed by D, capaz de. Only with the epistemic interpretation. One of them.
Thank you, professors. The fourth question. Eremito Filho from the Federal University of POE and from the NEC group at UFSC made the following comment on the YouTube chat. This capaz is very restricted to some geographical regions in Brazilian. Here in the Northeast, it would mean something like, destaque eu vou comprar algo. This is that I'm going to buy something.
Destaque eu vou comprar algo. I don't know, but when think about this expression, it's like a compromise, a commitment of the subject to the idea that he will buy something. When I see, don't go out to buy the thing, destaque eu vou comprar. Let me buy. I don't know if I'm interpreting correctly. My parents use this structure, desta. It's maybe a structure that came from deixa estar que, and then became desta. Desta que eu vou comprar. It's something like, don't do it, I will do. Maybe it's a kind of commitment element. Okay. But what's very interesting is that all of these expressions are combined with a CP. Desta que, parece que, showing that there is some kind of posture of the subject to the content of the proposition. Desta que eu vou comprar algo is something like that. Don't do it, I will do it for you. I don't know, Hermito, if this is your interpretation.
I didn't know this expression. I didn't know it. Never heard.
Okay, thank you, Professor. The fifth question. Xavier Villalba from Barcelona sent us the following question. If the marker must move from the judge P to SAP, the prediction is that the adverbs associated to commitment, for example, really, seriously, which according to Krifka sit in the spec common P, is the prediction correct?
Let me see. Seriously, frankly. Frankly, I think it's possible with velar, francamente, se eu vou fazer uma coisa dessa. Até parece, francamente, se eu vou fazer uma coisa dessa. I don't know, but with velar is good. Velar, francamente, se eu vou fazer uma coisa dessa. I don't know, I think for some adverbs it's possible to have what it predicted by the proposal.
Yeah. We have to study the interaction of this structure we're proposing with adverbs. We didn't do that yet, but it's a thing we have to do to think about these adverbs and test the data to see how they behave.
And
after
then,
the mark, yeah.
Yes. Até velar francamente se eu faço isso after the marker. Velar francamente se.
Velasse realmente. I don't know. We have to test. I really don't know.
Okay, thank you, professors. Now, if someone from La Casa and Egg here in the Zoom room want to ask a question to Professor Marcos and Professor Patrícia, please open your camera and turn on your microphone for us.
Can I start?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Sandra. If you want to ask, you can. Okay. So first of all, thank you for this great talk. I think everyone who was watching it could learn a lot. I was thinking about the expression in Brazilian Portuguese, se pá or se pá que. I will give you an example like se pá que cortaram minha energia or se pá cortaram a minha energia, meaning something like se pá that my energy got cut. I think se pá has a meaning closer to talvez, maybe, but when you showed us the impossible the impossible constructions, for example, eu acho que é capaz que, and that's a grammatical in Brazilian Portuguese, I think we could relate it to se pá because we can say, eu acho que talvez cortaram a minha energia, but you cannot say, eu acho que se pá que cortaram a minha energia. I think it's not good in my point of view, of course. But my feeling is that it deserves further study, of course. But I would like to know if this se pá is related to these markers studied by you both. Thank you a lot.
I don't know. I just I don't know the meaning of se pá exactly. I don't know how people use this expression. I can't say anything about that. Marcos, do you use se pá? Do you know se pá?
No, I do not use se pá, but my seeing people using the idea is that it's a kind of doubt, something like that, right? Talvez, maybe.
What's the
maybe
example, Victor? What's the example again, please?
se pá que cortaram a minha energia.
Se pá que cortaram minha energia. Meaning, talvez tenham cortado minha energia?
Yeah, maybe it's a kind of doubt, maybe related to the C, which is part of this element, okay? And maybe this pá, I don't know, I have to say, I have to see what is this. But I would say that it's a kind of, or a kind of epistemic modality of a kind of doubt modality, thing like this. I don't know. You said that it's possible to say, eu acho que se pá?
No, for me, it's grammatical.
Se pá talvez cortem minha energia?
Okay, for me, it's okay. Se pá talvez.
Maybe this is a kind of epistemic element, and what we have here is a kind of modal concord, se pá and talvez. It's very common in Portuguese and in languages in general to have this kind of modal concord. For example, when we see a kind of laws, we see things like that. Brazilian people must do obligatorily this kind of thing. Todos devem fazer obrigatoriamente isso. Né?
Okay.
Maybe what we have in case of se pá is a kind of modal element. Maybe a epistemic element, or maybe higher than a kind of commitment, maybe kind of doubt. I don't know. But it's interesting because now we have se before the element, se pá. It's not after the element. Okay, it's a great thing to study. Some people use this element maybe to say, to convey the meaning of se der, se for possível. For example, it's maybe again related to the probabilities of possibilities. Maybe it's a model.
Yeah, for example, are you going to the party tonight? Você vai na festa hoje? Se pá. Se der, se possível. If it's possible, I will.
Yeah. And what's nice is that maybe it's also related to deontic modality and epistemic and deontic. When we say se pá que cortem minha luz, it's a kind of epistemic, I don't know. But in the example of the party, it can be also deontic. Are you going to the party tonight? Se pá. For example, if is everything good with me, I go.
Yes.
If my parents let me, I will go. It's nice to see if this SIPA is related to all these kind of modalities, because if it's a modal element, we would expect that it's related to deontic, epistemic. Okay, but thank you. Maybe it's another element to understand in this syntax pragmatic interface. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions?
Yeah.
Sandra?
Sorry. Thank you so much, Marquinhos, Patrícia. This talk was great. I really like it. And I have only a comment, because some of the categories associate with the readings evoked by capaz, até parece, da onde, ver, namely the categories of mirativity, evolution, etc. Categories which in Cinque's hierarchy belong to the IP domain. Maybe one might be asking whether there is a syntactic mechanism guaranteeing a link between those categories within the inflectional domain and their mates in the CP domain. Thank you.
What do you think, Marcos? We didn't have find any empirical data to show that there is something like this, but we have to look at this possibility and think about it. There is a kind of relation established between these two areas.
Yeah, maybe mirativity is not so low in the structure, maybe high in the structure, because it's related to the way you stay when we say something, when we see something. It's a kind of, again, a state of the subject when the subject not, a state of the hearer, the speaker when he says something. Maybe it's related in this C domain of Miyagawa's proposal. I don't know. It's a question, because all of these structures, all of these meanings related to possibility, mirativity, evidentiality, all of them are the combination of the link of the meaning of a CP, meaning of a TP, and the meaning of the expressive way of the subject when he says something, or when he sees something, when he hears something. Maybe it's higher in the structure.
Okay.
It's a thing to investigate.
Thank you. And I have a curiosity. Do you find any data example with the topic plus VC, capaz que, in the same sentence, topic and the pragmatic markers, or not?
I was thinking of these examples yesterday, and I don't know if they are bad. For example, I think it's related to aboutness. Remember, imagine the context. Some people are talking about a book, and then I read that book. I don't like that book. And then I says, people are saying, this book is nice. And then I say, that book, imagine that if that book is good. I think it's good. Esse livro, imagina se esse livro é bom.
For me, it's good.
Imagine. Yeah, it's good.
Thank you a lot.
I have a question. Yeah.
Okay.
So first of all, Marcos and Patrícia, thank you so much for this brilliant talk. We enjoyed it a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my question is connected to constructions with ver lá, conveying judgment by the speaker. I was wondering what is the morphosyntactic and semantic status of lá in these constructions. So by turning to Miyagawa's structure, you argued that velá externally merges as the head of judge, the two together, and then ver lá reaches the head of speech act by means of internal merge. But what is the status of lá in this construction? Should it be taken as a focal-like element, as other locative-like adverbials, aqui, ali, there, seem to be fine in sentences with this ver lá?
Let's see. First of all, lá is not obligatory in these constructions. We can say something like, vê se eu vou fazer negócio desse. Vê se eu vou faltar aula. But your question is a genuine question because there is a prolific use of this kind of markers because we have ver lá. Maybe lá is a kind of focal element, as you propose, because we have até parece. Because até is a kind of a marker of focus. Até, and then maybe what we have here is a combination of this kind of markers with the semantics of the verbs, and then in the pragmaticalization, it gave rise to the interpretations. Surprise, negation. It's a very nice topic to investigate in terms of the diachronic origin of these elements, is the role played by these kind of markers into the rising of these structures, but are always focal markers, degree markers used in these structures, lá, até.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So finally, our last question, which arrived by email, and her question is somewhat connected to Sandra's last comment. Raquel, I am a student from the La Casa Research Group, sent us the following question. Capaz as a discourse marker in Brazilian Portuguese. In my northern variety, capaz only works in the epistemic interpretation, since my native intuition for the murative interpretation is almost non-existent. I almost like to ask you if sentences with precedence of topic are grammatical in this context, such as in example in 1A. Maria, capaz que ela é casada. B. Quanto ao João, capaz que ele fez a tarefa. What about the concurrence with a contrastive focus such as in 2? 2A. O Pedro, capaz que ele estuda alguma coisa? Não o Thiago, between markers. B. A Joana, capaz que tá de dieta? Entre parênteses, não a Luísa. Are these sentences grammatical to you, considering that the external merge position for capaz is in this interpretation is assumed to be a very high in the left periphery? What mechanisms can be involved in their derivation?
Well, concerning the the grammaticality of sentences in two, for me, they are not possible. I don't know, Marcus, what you think, but
No.
in terms of contrastive focus, it's not possible.
No, it's not good. No.
It's not good. In one, let me see.
In topic,
Yeah.
A Maria, oh my God.
Capaz que ela é casada. A Maria, capaz que ela é casada.
Capaz que ela é capaz.
Quanto ao João, capaz que ele fez a tarefa. Maybe. Yeah, it's a possibility.
Topic is possible, but focus is not good. It's related to the Sandra's question, because there is a relation with topic, but not there is no possibility of focus. It's a question for us to understand how to combine these elements with these possibilities into the structures. The only thing that we can say now is that, okay, they are good with topic before them, but they don't like focus. But we can have topic in a lot of positions in the structure, what we can do in this kind of thing.
Yeah. So we cannot say now what mechanisms can be involved in their derivation. Sorry, Raquel.
Okay, thank you all for your questions. Now, Professor Achilles, would you like to say anything?
Yes, I don't know if Sandra wanna say some words, otherwise I can announce our next speaker, Sandra.
Yeah. I'm glad because today we've here Marquinhos and Patrícia, our colleagues, Brazilian colleagues. I'm really happy, and I thank you to the talk, and I thank the audience for being here. Thank you a lot, and I hope see you in the next Zoom na Cartografia in the next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We would like to thank our audience. We've had a great time this morning with these two important cartographer colleagues from two Brazilian leading universities, Federal University of Paraná and UNB. Thank you, Patrícia. Thank you, Marcus, for this very nice talk. I personally would like to thank our two research groups which are organizing this series of events, NEG from the Federal University of Santa Catarina, and my research group here from Unicamp, La Casa. And we are glad to announce our next speaker, our next guest, who is Professor Richard Kane from New York University. He's going to close our Zona Cartografia series of conference this year, and his conference is going to take place on November 24th, and his talk is entitled Suffixal Comparatives and Suffixal Superlatives. So thank you, Professor Lunguinho and Professor Patrícia, and see you on November 24th. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Achilles and Professor Sandra. All right, thank you so much, Professor Marcus and Professor Patrícia, for being here with us today. And thank you all who attended the conference. It was a great pleasure. Bye-bye.